Your question was a perfect question about beneficiary, a perfect litmus question. Who's the beneficiary and all that? And we can clearly see not just the fingerprints. We see Vladimir Putin handshakes Hamas in Moscow, in the Kremlin. So what kind of a fingerprint is that? What's next?
Sorry, Henry. You know what? I'm just looking at my notes. Hamas leaders visited the Kremlin in March of this year, and again in September of this year. The Hamas Politburo chief, Ismail Haniyeh, was in Moscow. You know, we might have tried to guess at the time what those meetings were about. I think now, as I've said, there's a huge amount of circumstantial evidence. I think our collective security forces probably have a lot more than circumstantial evidence. Why they're not releasing it, when they will release it, is above my pay grade. I can say from my heart, I know that Russia is behind this. Russia's fingerprints are all over it. Russia has form, as you know, for carrying out this sort of operation. Another very interesting point, which, we do have Zelensky. President Zelensky has been more outspoken. And we also have Ukrainian military intelligence have made it very, very clear that Russia has been in the planning of this for over a year. We don't believe that Hamas could have carried out this on their own. We also have reports, Henry, of Western weapons being supplied to Hamas. Now, these are Western weapons captured in Ukraine from Ukrainian soldiers who have been taken prisoner or have been overrun or defeated. And we have seen the massive amount of disinformation. And Henry, you and I know that Russia is the country that lies on an industrial scale. They are the world masters in disinformation. And we're seeing this pattern arise. And I'm afraid that the attack on the hospital is now bearing all the hallmarks of that. Look, as it's you, let me make a confession. I jumped too quick a couple of days ago and I put out a tweet comparing the attack on the hospital to the bombing of the theater in Mariupol. Because immediately I was sucker punched because the mainstream media, the New York Times, Sky News, and many others immediately reported on the word of Hamas that this was a Israeli strike. It is now looking, and I'm still not going to say, but it is now looking on the balance of possibility that it was a rocket that originated inside Gaza. But, as the great Garry Kasparov, the former chess grandmaster, who is one of the most outspoken and articulate and trustworthy Russian dissidents in the West, said in the last 24 hours, the damage is done. The PR coup has been won already, and we can see that, because this is why I would not answer your question, because I'm listening to the news and looking. People are believing what they want to believe on this. Evidence is going out the window. When I used to work.
Yeah, well, the next question is not actually, which was not on my list, but what role should United Nations play? What are they doing now? And my guests often say that the reform of the United Nations is overdue and the body is not effective. Maybe this is the chance to make it finally work.
Well, look, and from somebody who had a one-time diplomatic career spanning just under 2 years, I believe the United Nations is a eunuch. They are completely ineffective in this. I am told that Brazil is currently drafting a resolution to go before the United Nations Security Council to gain a ceasefire, etc., etc. And this, of course, would need the support of Russia. China may well support. My own view is that given Russia's involvement in this, even if Russia were to support any resolution, we know they would be doing that for their own nefarious ends. There can be no working with Russia by nations of the civilized world at the moment is my point. Yes, the United Nations needs to be fundamentally reformed. It is being the Security Council in particular is being held to ransom. I personally do not believe that the United Nations can be effective in resolving this. I would love to be proven wrong, and I am not, I am not a great authority on this. I'm giving you my unspun opinion here. I do not personally see a huge role
what kind
for
of
the United
authority
Nations.
you really need to be to observing an absolute nothing? I mean, nothing is happening from United Nations but deep concerns. Whatever happens, the war in Ukraine, deepest concerns.
What have the United Nations done in 21 months since the war, since the illegal genocidal invasion of Ukraine and the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians?
No.
What have they done? Tell me.
I can tell you, they spent a huge amount of money.
Yeah. So no, I mean, a former United Nations diplomat, I had basically, I think, broken off relations with only yesterday, because he told me he wouldn't engage with me on this anymore. And when I said that Russia needed to be defeated, neutered, and isolated completely, he accused me of genocidal language. I wished him good luck. I'm not interested. He was vaunting. He's vaunting this great resolution, which he tells me Brazil is currently drafting, and that all else, that nothing, that the solution in Gaza now takes precedence above all else. No, it doesn't. Defeating Russia takes precedence above all else, because what we need to do is we need to go to the source, and Russia, I believe, and all the research I've been able to do, and what the Ukrainians believe, Russia is the source of this.
Yeah,
Russia needs to be defeated.
Cormac, I have a way to test it. Let's isolate Russia completely and defeat it on the battlefield and see what happens. Let's see how Hamas will act. Let's see, maybe the war would cease. Maybe we don't need to.
Let's see if Putin.
Yeah.
Let's see if Putin can survive defeat in Russia.
Yeah,
Joe Biden was right. I think it was March of last year when and he took a lot of criticism, and even his own White House tried to walk back on his comments. He said this man cannot stay in power, and immediately said, he's overstepping himself. He's talking about regime change.
Right.
No, I was very clear to me when I listened to him. I was on holiday in Spain at the time, Gran Canaria. It was very clear that he was saying, it's the Russian people who must bring about the downfall of Vladimir Putin. I very much doubt if defeat on the battlefield in Ukraine, if Putin could survive that. I presume you know that Ukraine has finally been given the American ATACMS system.
Oh, yeah, and you put it in a good use, right, in Berdansk, just by the way.
But they've been putting them to good use already. But Henry, my point is that, as I made in my earlier interview, my point is this is a fact which has probably passed 99% of the world by. Something that Ukraine has been crying out for at least 18 months, along with the battle tanks, which they got thanks largely to the Brits. The Brits unlocked the logjam with the Storm Shadow. Germany, Scholz is still holding up on Taurus. We know Ukrainians are finally been trained to fly F-16s. Better late than never.
True,
but,
that is true.
It's better late than never. But, my point, and I will debate anybody on this. My point is that the resolution to this is defeating Putin in Ukraine, and all else will flow from that.
Thank you so very much, Cormac, again. It was, again, a very lovely conversation with you. I just can't stop. I can't help myself. I want to talk for more with you, but we, unfortunately, have to go.
It's an angry conversation for me at the moment, Henry, but it's always a pleasure
I mean,
it's always a pleasure to join you.
This is absolutely the proper tone you are using. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.